The whispering darkness, the emergency lights cast long shadows across the cramped corridors of Colony. Eco 7, as Maya Chen pressed her palm against the cold metal wall. At 12 years old, she had learned to read the language of vibrations that others couldn't hear. Born without the ability to process sound, Maya had developed an extraordinary sensitivity to the mechanical heartbeat of their asteroid mining station today. Something was different. Something was wrong. Commander Alina Rodriguez stood in the central command room, her weathered face illuminated by the red glow of warning displays. At 45, she had spent the last 8 years keeping Eco 7 operational against impossible odds. The colony of 300 souls depended on her decisions, and right now, those decisions were becoming increasingly difficult. Life support is failing faster than our repair crews can compensate, reported Dr. James Okafor, the chief engineer. His usually steady hands trembled slightly as he manipulated the holographic displays showing the colony's critical systems. We have maybe 72 hours before we reach the point of no return. Rodriguez nodded grimly. The asteroid belt mining operation had been profitable for nearly a decade, but the constant stress of deep space operations was taking its toll on their infrastructure. The company had promised replacement parts months ago, but the supply ships had stopped coming when the corporate reorganization began. What about the evacuation ships? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Still 6 days out, assuming they maintain current speed, Okafor replied. And that's assuming they actually come. In the observation deck overlooking the main mining shaft, Maya felt the familiar vibrations of the colony's struggling systems through the floor. But underneath those familiar rhythms, she sensed something else. Something vast and patient, like a sleeping giant breathing in the darkness beyond their small world. Zara Chen found her younger sister pressed against the viewing port, staring out into the star-filled void. At 17, Zara had become Maya's voice in a world that often forgot to include those who experienced it differently. She tapped Maya's shoulder gently and signed, "What are you looking at?" Maya's hands moved in response, her signing rapid and excited. The big ship. It's not dead like everyone thinks. I can feel it dreaming. Zara followed her sister's gaze to the massive alien vessel that had appeared in their sector 6 months ago. The ship, which the colonists had nicknamed the Eternal Silence, was unlike anything in human records. Nearly 2 kilometers long, it resembled a crystalline sculpture more than a spacecraft, with organic curves and surfaces that seemed to shift color in the asteroid belt's dim light. "Maya, you know the scanning teams have been over that thing dozens of times," Zara signed patiently. "There's no power signature, no life signs, nothing. It's been dark since the day it arrived." But Maya shook her head insistently. "There, listening for sounds. I feel movements. The ship has a heartbeat, Zara. Very slow, very deep, but it's there." Dr. Okafor had been one of the engineers who had personally surveyed the alien vessel. Despite its impressive size and obviously advanced construction, every instrument had registered the same results. Complete dormancy. No energy emissions, no response to communication attempts, no signs of active systems. For all practical purposes, it was a beautiful but useless derelict. The engineering team had even attempted to board the vessel, but its hull had proven impenetrable to their cutting tools. Whatever materials the aliens had used in its construction, they were beyond human technology to breach. After weeks of fruitless attempts, the ship had been classified as an archaeological curiosity and largely ignored. Maya had watched those early exploration attempts with fascination. While the adults focused on their instruments and tools, She had noticed things they missed. The way certain sections of the hull seemed to pulse with an almost imperceptible rhythm. The manner in which the ship's orientation had gradually shifted over the months, as if it was slowly awakening from a deep sleep. Most importantly, she had felt the ship's attention. Commander Rodriguez was reviewing evacuation protocols when Zara and Maya entered the command center. The younger girl's arrival always caused a slight awkwardness among the adult crew, not from any malice, but from their uncertainty about how to communicate with her. They had learned basic sign language, but complex technical discussions remained. Challenging, Commander, Zara said. Speaking for her sister, Maya believes the alien ship might not be as inactive as we think. Rodriguez looked up from her displays, exhaustion evident in her eyes. Maya, we've been through this before. I know you're trying to help, but our best engineers have examined that vessel thoroughly. Maya's hands moved rapidly, and Zara translated. She says our instruments are designed to detect human technology. This ship might operate on completely different principles. Dr. Okafor joined the conversation, his scientific curiosity overriding his current stress. Even if that were true, what would you suggest we do? We don't have the luxury of time for another extended research mission. Maya stepped forward and placed her hand on the command console. The vibrations from the ship's systems flowed through her, painting a picture of mechanical distress that needed no words to understand. She began signing, her expression intense with concentration. She wants to go to the ship, Zara translated. She believes she can make contact where our instruments have failed. The command room fell silent except for the persistent hum of overtaxed life support systems. Rodriguez studied the young girl's determined face, recognizing the same stubborn courage she had seen in Maya's parents before their mining accident 3 years ago. Maya, even if you're right about the ship being somehow active, we can't risk sending anyone over there on a guess, Rodriguez said carefully, especially not you. But Maya was already shaking her head. She signed rapidly, her frustration evident. She's not asking permission, Zara translated with a slight smile. She's telling you that the ship is trying to communicate, and she might be the only one who can hear it. Dr. Okafor pulled up the latest sensor readings from the alien vessel. All systems show complete dormancy. No energy signatures, no electromagnetic emissions, nothing that would indicate active systems. Maya walked to the main display and placed both hands on the screen showing the ship's image. For a moment, she stood perfectly still, her eyes closed in concentration. When she opened them again, her signing was slower, more deliberate. The ship isn't using energy the way we understand it, Zara translated. It's using something deeper, something that connects living things to the universe around them. Rodriguez and Okafor exchanged glances. The girl's words touched on theoretical concepts that even their most advanced physicists only discussed in academic papers. A sudden alarm interrupted their discussion. The communications officer looked up from his station with alarm. Commander, we're detecting multiple contacts on long-range sensors. Unknown configuration, heading directly for our position. The main display shifted to show the approaching objects. 7 sleek vessels, clearly of the same alien design as the dormant ship, but these moved with obvious hostile intent. Their energy signatures were unlike anything in human databases, but their formation and approach vector left no doubt about their intentions. Time to intercept, Rodriguez demanded. 18 hours at current velocity, came the reply. Maya had been watching the display with growing excitement rather than fear. Her hands moved frantically as she signed to her sister. The sleeping ship knows they're coming, Zara translated. It's been hiding from them, but they've found it anyway. Maya says the sleeping ship isn't abandoned. It's a guardian that was hurt protecting others. Dr. Okafor studied the sensor data with growing concern. If these incoming ships are hostile, we're completely defenseless. Our mining lasers might slow them down, but against that level of technology, ... Maya says that guardianship can protect us, Zara continued translating. But it needs help waking up properly. It's been in emergency sleep mode, healing itself. Commander Rodriguez faced an impossible decision. Trust the instincts of a 12-year-old girl about alien technology beyond human understanding, or begin immediate evacuation procedures that would likely result in significant casualties given their limited transport capacity. Maya seemed to sense the adult's hesitation. She walked directly to Rodriguez and took the commander's hands in her own. Through touch, she conveyed something that needed no translation. Absolute certainty combined with desperate hope. What exactly are you proposing? Rodriguez asked quietly. Maya's response, translated by Zara, was simple. Let me talk to it. The journey to the alien vessel took 2 hours in the colony's maintenance shuttle. Against all protocols and despite significant opposition from other senior staff, Rodriguez had authorized the mission. Maya sat in the co-pilot seat, her hands pressed against the shuttle's hull, tracking the approaching presence of the guardian ship. Dr. Okafor piloted the shuttle with obvious reluctance. I want it on record that I consider this extremely dangerous, he muttered. We have no idea what that ship's defensive systems might do if activated. Maya couldn't hear his words, but she sensed his tension through the shuttle's vibrations. She signed to Zara, who sat behind them, *. She says the ship isn't dangerous to us, Zara translated. It's been studying our colony for months, learning about humans. It knows we're not the enemy. As they approached the massive alien vessel, its true size became overwhelming. The crystalline hull stretched beyond their visual range, its surface showing details that their distant observations had missed. Geometric patterns flowed across the ship's skin like slow lightning, too faint to register on instruments but visible to the naked eye. Maya pressed against the shuttle's viewport, her excitement palpable. The ship's presence felt stronger now, like standing next to a sleeping giant whose dreams were beginning to stir. Docking appears impossible, Dr. Okafor reported. There are no obvious airlocks or docking ports compatible with our systems. But as he spoke, a section of the alien hull began to change. The crystalline surface flowed like liquid, forming a perfect seal around their shuttle's airlock. Emergency lights activated throughout their small craft as the alien ship's systems interfaced with their own. That's impossible, Okafor whispered. How did it know our docking specifications? Maya was already moving toward the airlock, her face glowing with anticipation. She had felt the ship's welcoming presence, an invitation extended across the vast differences between species and technology. The alien ship's interior defied every expectation. Instead of sterile corridors and mechanical systems, they found themselves in spaces that felt grown rather than built. Walls curved organically, pulsing with gentle bioluminescent patterns that responded to their presence. The air itself felt alive, carrying scents of growing things and distant oceans. Maya moved through the passages with confident familiarity, as if she had walked these paths in dreams. Her hands traced the flowing walls, reading messages written in vibration and emotion rather than words or symbols. She knows where she's going, Zara observed, hurrying to keep up with her sister's determined pace. The central chamber they eventually reached was vast, its ceiling lost in soft shadows. In the center stood something that was part throne, part tree, and part technological marvel. Tendrils of living metal grew from the floor, reaching toward a central nexus that pulsed with the same rhythm Maya had been sensing from the colony. This was the ship's heart, its consciousness made manifest in physical form. Maya approached without hesitation, placing her hands on the warm surface of the nexus. The moment of contact sent shockwaves through both the ship and the young girl. For the first time in her life, Maya experienced something like hearing, as the ship's ancient consciousness spoke directly to her mind. Images flooded her awareness, vast star systems where peaceful civilizations had flourished for millennia. The arrival of the destroyers who consumed worlds and enslaved populations. The desperate flight of guardian ships trying to protect the innocent. And the long journey to this remote sector where the wounded ship had hoped to heal in safety. The Guardian's consciousness was vast and old, but tinged with profound sadness. It had failed to protect its charges, arriving too late to save entire worlds from destruction. Now, damaged and alone, it faced the approaching destroyers with little hope of victory. But through Maya's touch, it sensed something unexpected. The fierce protective instincts of humanity, the refusal to surrender in the face of impossible odds, and the innovative spirit that turned weakness into strength. Maya opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face as she processed the Guardian's memories and emotions. She signed rapidly to Zara, her movements urgent with new understanding. "The ship has been alone for so long," Zara translated, her own voice thick with emotion. "It doesn't know how to trust again, but it wants to help us, and it needs our help in return." Dr. Okafor watched in amazement as the chamber around them began to brighten. Systems that had been dormant for months were stirring to life, responding to the connection between the human girl and the alien consciousness. Outside, the approaching destroyer fleet continued their relentless advance toward Ecosabon, unaware that their prey was no longer defenseless. The Guardian ship was awakening, and it was no longer alone. Asterisk hearts across the void, the transformation of the Guardian ship was unlike anything Dr. Okafor had witnessed in his 20 years as an engineer. Systems that defied human understanding hummed to life around them, creating harmonies that seemed to resonate in his bones. Maya remained connected to the central nexus, her small frame trembling with the effort of bridging to completely different forms of consciousness. Through the ship's awakening senses, Maya experienced the approaching destroyer fleet with terrifying clarity. 7 vessels, each larger than anything in human space, carried weapons capable of cracking planets and enslaving entire civilizations. They had tracked the Guardian ship across dozens of star systems, determined to eliminate the last protector of the peaceful alliance that had once spanned this region of the galaxy. But something had changed in the equation. The Guardian ship's consciousness, which the girl now knew as Ethon, was no longer facing the destroyers alone. Maya's awareness expanded beyond the ship's hull, encompassing the entire asteroid field and the small human colony that had become her home. She felt every heartbeat of the 300 souls aboard Eco-7, their fear and determination creating a symphony of human emotion that Ethon found both alien and beautiful. "The connection is stabilizing," Zara observed, watching her sisters. Vital signs on the monitoring equipment Dr. Okafor had hastily rigged from their shuttle's medical kit. "Her brain activity is off the charts, but she seems to be adapting to it." Maya's hands moved in sign language, even while she remained linked to Ethon, her consciousness operating on multiple levels simultaneously. Zara translated for the others. She says the ship is teaching her how to integrate human technology with Guardian systems. It's possible, but it requires perfect cooperation. Commander Rodriguez's voice crackled through their communicators from Eco 7. We're tracking massive energy buildups from the approaching hostiles. Whatever you're planning to do, you need to do it fast. Ethon shared its tactical assessment with Maya through their neural link. The destroyer fleet possessed overwhelming firepower, but they were accustomed to facing opponents who fought according to predictable patterns. Humans, with their chaotic creativity and refusal to accept defeat, represented an unknown variable in their calculations. Maya began to understand what Ethon was proposing. The Guardian ship could provide defensive capabilities and advanced weapons, but victory would require human ingenuity and the kind of desperate innovation that their species was famous for throughout the galaxy. She opened her eyes and signed rapidly to Zara. We need to connect Eco 7's systems to the Guardian ship. Not just communications, but full integration. Dr. Okafor looked skeptical. Maya, our technology is centuries behind whatever this ship uses. The integration protocols alone would take months to develop. But Maya was already shaking her head. Through her link with Ethon, she had access to technical knowledge that spanned millennia of Guardian civilization development. More importantly, she understood how to translate that knowledge into concepts that human engineers could work with. She moved to one of the chamber's subsidiary control nodes and placed her hands on its surface. Immediately, holographic displays materialized in the air around them, showing detailed schematics of both Eco 7's systems and the Guardian ship's capabilities. This is impossible, Dr. Okafor whispered, studying diagrams that showed integration points between human and Guardian technology. These specs are perfect. They account for every variable in our system architecture. Maya signed to Zara, who translated. Ethon has been studying our colony for months, learning how human technology works. It understands our systems better than we do. The next 2 hours were a blur of frantic activity, using Maya as a translator between human concepts and Guardian knowledge. Dr. Okafor directed teams of engineers in establishing physical links between Eco 7 and the Guardian ship. Fiber optic cables were spliced into crystalline conduits. Power systems were synchronized across completely different energy spectrums, and computer networks were bridged using protocols that shouldn't have been possible. Throughout the process, Maya remained partially connected to Ethon, serving as a living interface between two forms of consciousness that had evolved on opposite sides of the galaxy. The strain was enormous, but her determination never wavered. She had spent her entire life feeling disconnected from the world around her, but now she was the bridge that could save everyone she cared about. The destroyer fleet was now only 6 hours away when the integration process finally reached completion. Eco 7's mining lasers had been enhanced with Guardian energy focusing technology, transforming them from industrial tools into weapons capable of threatening even advanced alien vessels. The colony's life support systems were backed up by the Guardian ship's biological recycling processes, and their sensors had been upgraded to detect threats across multiple dimensions of space-time. Most importantly, the combination of human tactical thinking and Guardian defensive capabilities had created something entirely new, a fighting force that neither species could have achieved alone. Commander Rodriguez stood in Eco 7's command center, now transformed by holographic displays and control systems that responded to thought as much as touch. All stations report ready, she announced. Maya, can you and your friend out there hear me? Maya's response came through the integrated communication system, her words carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate from the Guardian ship itself. We hear you, Commander. Ethon says to tell you that it has never fought alongside warriors as brave as humans. The first destroyer emerged from hyperspace like a malevolent star, its hull bristling with weapons that could sterilize worlds. 6 more followed, their formation designed to maximize the destructive potential of their combined firepower. They had expected to find a wounded Guardian ship hiding among the asteroids, easy prey for their overwhelming superiority. Instead, they found something unprecedented in their millennia of conquest, a hybrid defensive system that combined the protective instincts of the Guardians with the innovative determination of humanity. Maya felt the destroyer's surprise through Eth's senses as their scans revealed the integrated defense network. The Guardian ship was not only active, but had somehow merged its capabilities with the primitive human outpost, creating a defensive matrix that their tactical computers couldn't analyze. They're hesitating, Rodriguez observed from the command center. Apparently, they don't like surprises. The lead destroyer finally opened fire, launching energy beams capable of cracking moons. But Maya and Ethon were ready. The Guardian ship's defensive shields, powered by Eco-7's fusion reactors and distributed through the asteroid field, absorbed the attack and redirected it back at the attackers. The lead destroyer, struck by its own reflected weapon, fire, staggered backward with hull breaches that vented atmosphere into space. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded military history. Human miners, guided by Guardian tactical systems, used their mining charges to create asteroid bombardments that struck with the precision of guided missiles. Eco-7's enhanced laser arrays, powered by both human reactors and Guardian energy crystals, carved through destroyer hulls with surgical precision. Maya served as the coordinator for the entire defense, her consciousness distributed between her own body, Ethon's vast awareness, and the sensor networks of Eco-7. She felt every shot fired, every maneuver attempted, every small victory and setback in the desperate battle for survival. The destroyers, faced with an enemy they couldn't understand or predict, began to make tactical errors. They tried to separate the Guardian ship from its human allies, not realizing that the integration was now so complete that such separation was impossible. They attempted to overwhelm the defenses with brute force, not understanding that human ingenuity thrived under pressure. Most critically, they failed to grasp the emotional dimension of the battle. For Ethon, this was a chance to finally protect innocence after centuries of failure. For the humans, it was a fight for their home and their right to exist among the stars. That combination of redemption and defiance created a synergy that no amount of superior technology could overcome. 3 hours into the battle, the tide began to turn. 2 destroyers had been disabled by coordinated attacks that used human unpredictability to bypass their defensive systems. A third had been destroyed when Maya guided a series of mining charges through a precise sequence of dimensional folds, creating an explosion inside the enemy ship's reactor core. Commander Rodriguez watched the tactical display with amazement and growing hope. I can't believe we're actually winning this. Maya's voice, harmonized with Ethon's consciousness, replied through the communication system. Ethon says that courage is the one force in the universe that can't be calculated or predicted. The destroyers have forgotten what it means to fight for something worth saving. The remaining destroyer ships began to retreat, their formation breaking apart as individual captains made desperate attempts to escape the impossible defense they had encountered. But Maya and Ethon weren't finished. Using techniques that combined human tactical doctrine with Guardian pursuit capabilities, they systematically disabled each fleeing vessel, ensuring that word of this battle would spread throughout the destroyer fleet. When the last enemy ship was captured, its crew imprisoned within energy fields that would hold them until proper authorities could be contacted. Maya finally allowed herself to disconnect from the Guardian ship's consciousness. The separation left her feeling oddly empty, like losing a sense she had only just discovered. Ethan's presence remained accessible but no longer overwhelming. Their connection now a partnership rather than a merger. Through their link, Maya felt the ancient Guardian's profound gratitude and something even more, precious hope. Dr. Okafor found Maya in the Guardian ship's central chamber, sitting quietly beside the nexus that had changed everything. She looked exhausted but peaceful, her face showing a maturity that hadn't been there hours before. "How do you feel?" he asked, though he suspected words might be inadequate to describe her experience. Maya signed her response, and Zara translated. "She says she finally understands what she was meant to do. All her life, she felt like she was missing something that everyone else had. Now she realizes she wasn't missing anything. She was just waiting for the right conversation partner." Over the following weeks, as news of the battle spread throughout human and Guardian space, Eco 7 became the center of unprecedented cooperation between species. The Guardian ship, which Maya had learned to call by its true name, Ethon Vinethys, remained connected to the colony, its vast knowledge helping to solve problems that had plagued human space travel for generations. Maya served as the primary liaison between the species, her unique abilities making her indispensable to the growing alliance. But more than that, she had become something new, a bridge between different forms of consciousness, a translator for thoughts and emotions that transcended the barriers between worlds. The destroyer threat was far from over, but, for the first time in centuries, the peaceful civilizations of the galaxy had hope. Humanity had proven that courage and creativity could triumph over overwhelming odds, while the Guardians had remembered that protection was more than just superior firepower. It was about connections that made life worth defending. Standing in the observation deck of Eco 7, now expanded and enhanced with Guardian technology, Maya felt the vibrations of two different kinds of engines, human fusion reactors and Guardian biocrystalline drives, working in perfect harmony. She no longer felt alone in her silence, because she had learned to hear the voices that spoke without sound, the conversations that happened between hearts across the infinite void of space. Ethan's presence touched her mind gently, sharing an emotion that needed no translation, gratitude for a young human girl who had refused to accept that some things were impossible, and who had taught an ancient Guardian that sometimes the most profound connections happen between those who seem to have nothing in common. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of possibilities for understanding, cooperation, and hope. And sometimes all it took was someone willing to listen with more than just their ears. **